next we have RUA Gold Inc. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol NZAUF and on the CSE under the symbol RUA. It's an exploration company strategically focused on New Zealand. And with decades of expertise, the team has successfully taken major discoveries into producing world-class mines across multiple continents. So happy to welcome its CEO, Rob Eckford. Welcome to the conference today, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Anna. It's great to be here.
All right, the floor is yours. Call me back when you're ready for questions.
Sounds good. I'll try and take up around 15, 20 minutes of your viewers' time, and then I'm very keen to hear feedback and questions that come out of it. I think we're an individual story that you wouldn't see any other mining companies out there very often pitching you a New Zealand gold story. And that's exactly the opportunity. New Zealand has long been overlooked, and I think it's actually the best jurisdiction in the world right now. And here to tell you a bit why, both from a government and jurisdiction point of view, but also the high-grade gold that New Zealand has. So we listed RUA in March 2024, so we're relatively new, and we're really aggressively exploring it. Right now, our strategy is a New Zealand roll-up. So in 2024, we completed some M&A. We tripled our land size. We have targeted really high-grade gold, and we've already got drill results showing visible gold over 30 grams a ton type returns we're seeing here. The timing is perfect because the New Zealand government, more than ever in the last few decades, is now pushing for more and more mining to come into New Zealand. And we're going to start there because the biggest question I ever get is why New Zealand and what does the New Zealand jurisdiction look like? It's not all the rolling hills and the land of the hobbits as you guys see in the movies. There is real interesting pockets of New Zealand that are very mining centric, and it's got a long history of gold mining. The gold rush in New Zealand was actually bigger than California's gold rush. Over 40 million ounces of gold has been taken out of New Zealand in the past. And the new government that is in as of 2023 is really pushing for the mining industry to grow. They've got a plan to double mining exports over the next 10 years. And one of the key things they've done to help promote that is they actually passed brand new legislation. So it got introduced at the start of 2024. It was passed and is now active by the end of 2024. In December, it got written into the legislation. And it's called the Fast Track Approvals Bill. And what it does is worldwide makes New Zealand the #1 jurisdiction because you can now get a mining permit in New Zealand. So you can build a mine in New Zealand in a 6-month time frame. The Fast Track Approvals Bill essentially aims to put all the right people on one panel to make sure that you're doing the full review. We're not taking any shortcuts, but you can do it in an expedited fashion because you've only got one group that you need to talk to. And it's a 6-month process. I sit here in Canada, and the process for getting a mine permit is multi-years. It can be 3, 4, 5 years. To do it in 6 months is unheard of in the developed world. And that's another reason why we're in New Zealand, is because the jurisdiction is obviously very safe. I'm not going to go into why. I mean, geopolitics-wise, we know all the mess that's happening in Africa. We see Panama taking back mines. We don't want to be in the developing world right now. Right now, New Zealand is first world, good infrastructure, good legislation. And now with the government behind us, it is the best jurisdiction in the world. The team that we've assembled to run RUA Gold and move this forward has a huge amount of experience. We've raised over $2.2 billion for gold mining projects. We've built 8 mines and put them into production. And then we've sold these companies once we've packaged them up for over $11 billion. So that's a huge amount of value creation for shareholders. And this isn't our first time. There's a reason why we're all here focused on New Zealand. I'm a Kiwi. I was born in Auckland. Our chairman, our largest shareholder, Oliver Lennox-King, also a Kiwi. We've got a real Kiwi-centric board, and so we have an ear to the ground with what's going on there. I'm going down next week on Tuesday for our first ever analyst tour, and we're getting interest from North America, from Australia. We're getting a lot of interest in what's going on in New Zealand because of all these changes, but also because we've made shareholders in the past so much money. They're willing to back us again. I won't go into every single person on this page in the interest of time, but a couple of notable companies that your viewers can look at is our chairman most recently exited RUA Gold. He built that from scratch, starting as an explore co in West Africa and Burkina Faso, built it up, and by the end of it had 2 assets in West Africa and sold it to Fortuna Mining for over $1.2 billion. I most recently came out of Aris Mining. I co-founded Aris Mining in 2020. I'm a finance guy background, so I was the CFO when we founded that. And it's now the largest gold producer in Colombia. It's over $1 billion market cap. So this isn't our first time. Sure, we're small, we're new, we're sub 50 million market cap. And so a lot of people think that's a penny stock level. We're not going to stay here for long. And we're all putting our money where our mouths is. Insiders and that board and management group own 18% of the stock. And we are all in this for an average cost base of around 65-70 cents Canadian. Right now, we're trading at around 60 to 65 cents. So we're sitting in line with anyone getting into the story today. And if anyone wants to take a look, in the last week, almost all of our insiders have continually been buying stock on the market because we're so cheap right now. It's an amazing opportunity to get into this story. We have a very tight cap structure of 50 million shares. We've raised money without having many dilutive warrants at all. And so we've got limited 3 million warrants outstanding, which actually are coming up for expiry in a couple of months. So they'll more or less disappear, and we'll be sitting with a common share structure only. We raised $8 million last July, and that's Canadian dollars. And that was done at a $1.08 price, and there was no warrant issued. And again, because of the team, because of our track record and the institutions behind us, we're able to do these things. And there's not many sub $50 million companies out there that can raise money without warrants, but we've got the backing to do that. And so we're very content and very focused on our cap structure and making sure we maintain it and keep it nice and tight. So that's the overview of New Zealand. That's the management team and our cap structure. So that sort of sets the stage now for getting into what we're actually doing in New Zealand. So we've got 2 assets, and RUA Gold, RUA actually means 2 in Maori, and that's where we get our name from, a homage to the indigenous of New Zealand. And we've got 2 prolific gold districts in New Zealand, one on the North Island, which is an epithermal style geology deposit, and then in the South Island is an orogenic deposit. Both areas are past producing and still current producing in the North Island. Over 15 million ounces of gold coming out of the North Island there, and still producing to this day. Oceana Gold are a neighbor of ours, and we'll get into that as we go. But our real exciting asset right now is the Reefton Goldfield. That had historic production on our property of 2 million ounces at grades of 9 to 50 grams a ton. And I'll just pause here to say the average grade of gold being produced out there in the world these days is less than a gram a ton. So we're talking grades of 10 to 50 times what the average grade is right now. And people may have heard it before, grade is king. As I said, I'm a finance guy. I love high margin operations. I don't want to be sitting worrying about the gold price moving up or down 20%. I want to be in an operation that generates a lot of cash flow, and you need grade to do that. So jumping into a bit more depth on that South Island property in the Reefton district. The geology here, for anyone that's a geo and a technical background on the call, this is an orogenic gold deposit. And so what that means is it's multiple gold veins, super old rock. We're thinking the early formation of the earth. And the South Island of New Zealand was actually once connected to Victoria, Australia. And that's where some of the biggest gold rushes worldwide has ever happened. And that's where the likes of a Fosterville and a Southern Cross Gold, some of our peers have the exact same geology that we have. So we know we're in a geologically favored area. And even more so, this area, as I said, has had past production, and it hasn't been touched in a significant way since the 1950s. So if you think about how far technology's come in the last 75 years, how back in the early days they couldn't actually mine as deep as they do now. There's a huge potential just to go underneath these old deposits and continue down. And that's exactly what's happened. Right now, we have this entire district, 125,000 hectares. It's about the size of LA. So we've got a huge land package in New Zealand. And our neighbor that we now surround is called Blackwater Federation Mining. So Blackwater is the project, Federation Mining is the company. It's an Australian private company, and they have 7,000 hectares in the middle of our property. They've raised over 150 million US for this project. It's fully permitted through to construction, and they're expecting first gold in early 2026. We own all the land around them. We have 125,000 hectares, and we're essentially enveloping their entire property. What Federation team have done is go underneath an old historic mine, and they found another 800,000 ounces at 24 grams a ton. So again, 24 times the average grade. And they've proven that it's a validation for us that there's still a lot of ground left, a lot of gold left in this ground. So we've got 3 drills currently turning. We're going to have a lot of exploration results coming out to the market in 2025, and it really is a drill story. Looking at it in a different way, when I say that 2 million ounces came out of this district, this is a north to south view, cross-section of these historic mines, and it shows the different depths that these old mines went to. So some mines went down 500 meters, some went down 200 meters. If you look for the second from the right is Federation Mining's Blackwater project. So their historic mine went down 700 meters. It then caved in because in the 50s and you're using timber shafts, the ground support isn't there. You can only go to certain depths. And so that mine collapsed and it was never re-entered since 1950. This whole area hasn't been looked at in any significant way since the 1950s. So Federation Mining came in and they went underneath the old workings, and that's where their 785,000 ounces at 24 grams a ton sits. They've got mineralization all the way down to 1,500 meters. So they've got a great package, but we've got 7 times that. We've got 7 historic mines, as well as greenfield areas that haven't even been touched. So we've got the much better land package. And so we're really excited to be drilling. One of our drills is currently turning at Murray Creek, which is the 3rd column there, only went down 200 meters. That's where we've already found visible gold. And we've seen over 34 grams a ton. We're currently drilling there. That was our first intersect there on drill hole number 2. And we now have 3 pieces of core waiting at the lab, and it's going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So extremely exciting time to be in this story as we hit visible gold, as we see the unpacking of the Reefton district, which no one has ever done for the last 75 years. And we're the first company, I'm going to pop back up to this district scale shot. We're the first company that's ever controlled the entire Reefton district as one company. And I put aside the postage stamp that Federation Mining have. They are still in our district. But apart from that 7,000 hectares, we control the remaining 125, which is an extremely exciting opportunity to actually create scale. That's the sort of overview of Reefton district for now. Really, it's a story where no one's looked at it. We're coming back to New Zealand in a big way. There's historic production. It's not a question of, is there gold left there? It's a question of how much gold is left there. And that's what we're proving out this year. And we look to be doing that in a very aggressive way. Moving on to the North Island, the Hauraki district, as I said, epithermal style, think Rim of Fire, think Papua New Guinea, think Japan, all these really high-grade epithermal deposits in the world. It's elephant country. When you're in an epithermal deposit, you're talking millions of ounces of gold at a time. They're big deposits, and it's proven in this area because we're actually adjacent to a current operating mine. This is an overview of that area, and you're going to see at the bottom of the green photo here, you're going to see OceanaGold's Waihi mine. That has produced over 10 million ounces of gold. So it's a monster deposit, and it's still operating today. So they're producing currently, it's gone down because it's been operating for the last 30 years, but they're down to about 60, 70,000 ounces a year they're producing out of that open pit. But what's really exciting in the North Island is Oceana Gold's biggest pipeline project. And I'll just, for anyone that doesn't know, Oceana Gold are a $3 billion company. So we're not talking the small fish here. This is a major gold producer. Their biggest pipeline project is Wharekirauponga. That's got 1 million ounces. It's actually updated from this slide from when we provided this to the group. As of recent, they've just upgraded it to 1.4 million ounces at the same 15 grams a ton. So that resource is growing. Not only that, they just brought out a PFS on that in December 2024. And when I talked about that fast track approval process, this is exactly what's going into it. WKP, as that's shortened for Wharekirauponga, has been approved to go into the fast track process. So the permitting timeline for this project is now 6 months, and we could see construction starting by the back half of this year. So again, a really exciting time. Worth adding as well that this Waihi mine is a full mining town. So when you think about New Zealand and do they do mining? Is it a friendly place to do mining, et cetera, you can see an entire town built around that open pit. Now, I'm not saying we're here to do any open pit mining because we are very environmentally conscious. We're all Kiwis at heart. We don't want to push the envelope too much, and we have huge high grades, so we don't need to be open pitting. We're very forward thinking on knowing that open pits shouldn't be the first option. We're very forward thinking in knowing that we want to be environmental custodians. And so we're only looking at underground mines in New Zealand. And that's exactly the plan for WKP. It's exactly our plan for Reefton. And it would be our plan for Glamorgan once we're at that stage. A couple of other really notable points on Glamorgan, and I didn't touch on it before, and I'm going to flick back up to our management team slide very quickly. Simon Henderson, our COO, he's our boots on the ground geologist. He has over 40 years experience, and a lot of it is in this Waihi district. So he was actually the geologist that was boots on the ground and delineating the Waihi open pit when it was still a flat hill. So he's worked in Waihi for over 15 years. He then left, at that time, and Newmont owns the Oceana Gold Waihi mine. He then left them and he staked on his own WKP and Glamorgan. And he was the geologist that actually led the team to discover WKP. So we're not just coming into Glamorgan fresh. We've got a geo that has over 40 years experience, but over 20 years experience in this exact area. So you're not just backing new people on the block, you're backing a huge amount of history, and you're backing a geo that's already had one major discovery here. So it's a really exciting time. Glamorgan is an earlier stage asset. We're doing surface samples at the moment. We're doing all the soil work, the mapping, we're flying the drones over. We're doing our drill targeting work so that we're ready to drill by the back half of this year. We've already found, again, having such a history and having the geologist that knows this area so well, we've already found our area of focus. It's called the Wise Ridge Prospect, and it's 3.8 kilometers long on surface. It's an untested zone of silicification, veining, and alteration. And what that essentially means is that we're seeing all the same surface features as we had with WKP into this Glamorgan Wise Ridge Prospect. We're finding rock samples of 95 grams gold on surface. It's a very exciting time, and we're going to have drills turning by the back end of this year, but we're also going to have the excitement of following WKP's progress as that fast track approval bill comes through and that they start construction. So that's the story of the two islands. Really putting it in summary, we're a team that's done it before. We're focused on New Zealand because we think New Zealand is the best place in the world for mining right now, and we know what we're doing. We have a capital markets experience, we have technical experience, and we have jurisdictional experience, and that's why RUA Gold is the most de-risked exploration investment that you can ever come across. And I'll pause there and pass it over to the audience for any questions you guys may have.
Thank you, Rob. Great presentation. And I hear that part of the world is just gorgeous besides all of the assets there. So let's jump into some questions. A viewer, John, wants you to talk a little bit about your property's infrastructure, including roads, water, electric, housing, and whatnot.
Sure. No, that's a great point. And it's easy to say New Zealand has good infrastructure, but you don't want to end up in the middle of nowhere. So I'm just going to flick to this page right here. And what you'll see when we have that little black dot of Reefton in the middle of our map there, that is a Reefton town. It's a mining town. There's actually coal mines that are still operating. And you may not know, but New Zealand is actually a major coal exporter. All their coal is really what we'd call green coal, really high efficiency coal. It all goes up to Japan, and it all comes out of Reefton. So we're in a coal mining district in Reefton. There's already rail, there's high voltage power, there's obviously all the highways in the town of Reefton right next to it. And our tenements, our underground mines, would be less than 1.5 kilometers from Reefton town. So we're in a really good infrastructure spot in Reefton. Going to that map of Glamorgan, again, right next to Waihi. So we know we've got the infrastructure and the skills there. And we're going to be adjacent to the WKP project. So again, we're not in the middle of nowhere. We're going to have active mining industries as well as all the infrastructure of road power and electricity right next door to us in both situations.
Fascinating. Thank you. Chris asks about the acquisition properties for the roll-ups. Do they have proven reserves, and do you have a cumulative total?
We do, yeah. We acquired the properties last year. They've got about 500,000 ounces of gold proven up, and that's a gold equivalent. One thing I haven't really talked about is the geology of Reefton is a gold antimony deposit, and there's a lot of fanfare around antimony right now. Its spot price has gone from 2,000 to 40,000 over the last 18 months. So it's one of the best performing commodities out there. It's a critical mineral, very important to us, but it is a byproduct. We're still a gold mining company. Antimony is a very valuable byproduct, and the gold antimony equivalent is around 500,000 ounces that we've got. We don't advertise that because we're not here to build a 500,000 ounce mine. We're going to be building on that, and we're only going to really start talking about what reserves we have once we hit the 1.5 million sort of aim target that we've got by the end of the year.
And Mike wants to know, does New Zealand have any grants that make it attractive? And what's your relationship with the government? Do they have any skin in the game?
That's a really good point. And so New Zealand, I'm going to be very honest, is just coming into this mining game. You've got a government that came in at the end of 23. They just started this legislation process to speed up mining. They've just coming up with their critical minerals list, which actually gets officially announced at the end of this month with antimony on there. And there is no set policy right now with New Zealand coming in and backing and saying we're going to grant this much towards development. But at the same time, we're a big fish in a small pond. We have direct communications with the Resource Minister, Shane Jones, and he's actually going to be coming to Toronto with us in March. There's a big conference called PDAC that happens every March. We're going to be there. Shane Jones is coming with us, and he's out there to tell the rest of the investment community New Zealand is open for business, as well as meet other ministers and understand what they're doing around their critical mineral strategy. So it's not there now. To say it's not going to be in the future is unknown at this stage, but it's still a very supportive government without the fiscal sort of framework right now.
And with that said, Daryl wants to know, besides that conference in March, how is the government behind you, and how is that financial relationship structured?
Sure. So the government, maybe a more nearer term impact, the government are with us in terms of the permitting and getting things done. So they're there for us to help move the project forward. But New Zealand is a small economy run by agriculture. They don't have a huge surplus to suddenly put some money aside and help invest into mining. And so they're looking to make it as easy as possible for foreign ownership to come in and help move this industry forward. There's no government grants. There's no stimulus packages at this stage. There's New Zealand pension funds. There's private institutions down there looking to get into it, but there's no handouts from the government at this stage.
And a few questions about your roll-ups. First, are any of them producing? And what's the financial structure behind any acquisitions in the roll-up strategy?
So the most recent one, and I'll go back to the Reefton District slide. The most recent one is, as of November last year, we just closed it. We took our land package from 35,000 hectares up to that 125 mark. So we added a huge amount of land. We did that through an acquisition of Siren Resources. It was is an ASX company. They had Reefton as one of their projects, and we acquired the assets out from underneath it. So it was very clean asset purchase. We did that for $2 million in cash and $18 million in RUA stock at a $1.20 valuation price. So again, we're trading today at 65 cents. We picked up that with paper at $1.20. It was very accretive again to our shareholders. And it came with the resource, but no production. This is all advanced stage exploration, no producing assets on our properties at this stage.
And Keith asks, with those two historic high-grade districts, are they wholly owned by RUA?
Correct. Wholly owned, no streams, no royalties, no NSRs, very clean cap structure.
And M wants to know, are there convertible or dilutive instruments on the balance sheet, or do you anticipate there will be?
No, again, we're keeping this company really clean and the story really straight. We have no convertibles, we have no debt, it's straight shares only. This is a pure play exploration story in New Zealand.
And Chris asks, how are your acquisitions being financed? Are you doing cash or stock deals?
So as mentioned, the last acquisition we did was a piece of cash, 2 million of cash, and that's Australian dollars, I should add, and 18 million Australian in scripts. So we're definitely, when our paper is valuable, we're definitely open to using stocks to have our acquisitions completed. And then if needed, we can look at the cash option, but cash we'd like to reserve for drilling.
And Nate is referencing the slide that talks about capital raised. Is this from the region as a whole, he asks?
Capital raised, sorry. This is actually the 2 billion in capital raised is actually from this group of board and directors here. So we've all had a lot of experience in the gold mining space. We've raised capital before for other gold mining projects. This is not for RUA. This is our previous companies that we've built and sold. And so these statistics here is what has the team done? We've raised a lot of money. We've built a lot of numerous mines in all jurisdictions. I've come out of Colombia in my most recent job. As I mentioned, Oliver has come out of Burkina Faso from his previous, but he's also worked in the US, and I've been throughout Africa, throughout Latin America and the US. So we've got a lot of experience in different jurisdictions. And of the 2 billion we've raised, we've had 11 billion in exits. And that's a sign of value creation.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, do you have any closing remarks for our viewers today?
No, I'd just encourage your viewers, if there is interest, take a look at what RUA is doing. Take a look at what New Zealand is doing, because there's an arbitrage opportunity here because no one knows about New Zealand. And it's the best jurisdiction. They really want mining. And they're not throwing money at us, but they're throwing licenses, which I think is actually way more valuable. To get things done in a shorter time frame is much more valuable than giving us a $5 million check.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time and presentation. Fascinating. We'll see you again in the future with some updates.
Thanks so much, Anna. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.